terms of the social political impact on Qatar, Hossam, you've been looking at this this week, particularly around food security, but also, I guess, who's supporting Qatar, who's not. You know, the political relationships. What's the impact? How have things changed now, and how are they changing?
Well, the risk will be, at least for the Saudis, is that isolating Qatar to this extent you run the risk of warming relations between Qatar and Iran. And there have been a few statements coming out of Tehran over the last couple of days implicitly supporting Qatar, but some reports are suggesting that the Iranians are prepared to send food products to Qatar. I'll go into the significance of the food supply shortage in Qatar at the moment. And the other side is Turkey's supported Qatar quite strongly and said it stands with Qatar, although it wants to work towards some sort of dialogue. So that's the initial risk. The risk is that this isolation of Qatar could actually end up driving Qatar further and further away rather than bringing it into the bloc.
So that's getting onto risks. I want to focus just for a moment on the impact. What actually has... So we've seen the closing of the airspace of Saudi airspace and UAE airspace and Bahraini airspace. So that's sort of three sides of 4 out of 4 around Qatar. We've seen the closing of the land border with Saudi and seaports trade being closed as well. So what does that mean? What's the impact of that?
Well, the impact is very clear. Qatar, its only land border is with Saudi Arabia, and I think up to 50% of its food imports come through that border with Saudi Arabia. The other thing is that almost 50% of Qatar's food imports are from Saudi Arabia and the UAE, so these have been cut off. And the initial impact, and we saw this within a matter of hours actually in Doha, where there was a scare over food supplies, whether Qatar would be able to import and procure the food products it needs for its economy and its people. So that happened almost instantly, and there were reports of supermarkets, of Qatari citizens and residents, rushing to supermarkets to stock up their houses. So that's been the initial impact, and that's going to continue. And if it extends, Qatar could find itself in a very dangerous situation.
I guess the fear factor of not knowing what's happened and where things are going. But Colin, what do you think? You speak to people in business and in construction and projects a lot, and what are they saying? What do you think is the immediate impact?
Well, I mean, to echo what Hossam was saying, I made a few calls on this pretty immediately, and there was talk about things like supply chain and things, but the most important thing that cropped up immediately was, let's forget about that for the time being. The most important thing's food. You really do come back to basics in these situations. In terms of supplies, it has a far-reaching impact across pretty much every industry that requires imports, and most industries in Qatar do require imports. The amount of imports, type of imports, frequency of imports varies from industry to industry, but it's across the board. So you're seeing things like the aluminium industry. Qatalums requires things being shipped in from Jebel Ali port in Dubai. That can't happen directly. If you're talking about construction, there's a couple of things at play there. You've got the movement of material and equipment across the land border, which contractors say could be up to sort of 50% of materials and equipment being used in Qatar at the moment. Of course, that doesn't mean construction projects stop immediately, but as deliveries stop, it delays progress. And then on top of that, you've got movement of people around as well. A lot of people fly in for meetings. You'd have specialised contractors coming in on a short-term visit. So lots of things in terms of the supply chain.
Qatar doesn't have its own quarries either, does it?
Aggregate's a big one, which slightly different. Okay, some of it does come across by land, but there's a lot of shipping now which can't go through directly. So that puts a lot of pressure on.
At the moment, I mean, so that's what's impacted in an ongoing basis. But are there now shortages of those key suppliers, or is it still too early in the process?
I think it's too early in the process. I mean, you conversations I've had with people who've said, they've got a truck going next week with X, Y, and Z on it that they need to finish a job. That's going to cause a problem. Going to require things like an extension of time to get the job done and things like that. So there are pinch points that are coming up very, very rapidly. I think let's be optimistic about it from a project delivery point of view. If you said that the situation was resolved over the weekend and the borders opened on Sunday, there's going to be a backlog of things, there's going to be a bit of a delay, but that probably wouldn't be much more than, say, if you had an extended public holiday for some reason or
We're
inclement
getting
weather.
into that period of the year when
Yeah,
things slow
yeah.
anyway.
So if it's resolved quickly, it shouldn't be too much
Okay,
of
I
a
want
problem.
to come on to projects in more detail in a moment.